Day continues here on One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. The NCR Plus is slowly loosening its restrictions as the downtrend of COVID-19 cases continues. But in other areas, the opposite situation is happening. To tell us more about this, we have our correspondent Faith Del Mundo reporting live from Quezon City. Faith, good afternoon. What's the latest in areas outside NCR Plus?
Yes, Risa, the Health Department reports a steady increase in COVID-19 cases and hospitalization in some provinces. That's why they remind residents in the NCR Plus to keep their guards up despite the loosening of some restrictions in the bubble. The DOH believes that placing NCR Plus under the extended GCQ with restrictions was successful in lowering COVID-19 cases. In the Laging Handa public briefing, Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Berjeres said the daily average in the bubble right is at 1,000 cases. That's a huge decrease from the 5,000 daily average of COVID-19 cases reported from March and April. With that, NCR might be considered as a safe zone soon. But Berjere reminded the public to remain cautious to the movement. She said some regions, particularly Visayas and Mindanao, are experiencing an increase in new cases and hospitalizations. Berjere also reported that 98% of COVID-19 vaccines were already distributed and the remaining 2% are only buffer stock. Some LGUs temporarily halted their vaccine roll-off. But with a new batch of vaccine doses in the country, Berjere assured the public that vaccination can be resumed soon. Around 60% of the new batches of the COVID-19 jobs will be allocated to region with high number of cases. Risa, Berjere recognizes the call to send additional vaccine supplies to provinces, but she reminds them that the vaccines are not the only solution in controlling their COVID-19 situation. Berjere emphasized that the need to follow health safety protocols like wearing of face masks and face shields. Risa?
Thank you. That was Faith Del Mundo reporting to us live from Quezon City. Now, need more reasons to get vaccinated? Well, around 180 restaurants are offering incentives to individuals who already got their COVID-19 jabs. Speaking to the chiefs, Margot Torres of the vaccine campaign Ingat Angat Bakuna Lahat said at least 188 restaurant brands are offering discounts to their vaccinated customers. But that's not all, she said. In September, the private sector will offer more bakuna benefits like discounts in gasoline stations and non-food items.
But hanggang August 31 yon. Pagdating ng September, papasok na yung iba. Hindi lang food. Gasoline stations, non-food.
Some countries have started vaccinating children against COVID-19, but the World Health Organization has reservations. Let's watch this interview.
If you've been wondering about vaccination of children against COVID-19, this episode of Science in 5 is for you. Hello and welcome. I'm Bismita Gupta-Smith, and we are talking to WHO's Chief Scientist, Dr. Soumya Swaminathan today. Welcome, Soumya. Soumya, my first question to you is, at this time in June 2021, WHO is saying that vaccinating children is not a priority. Could you please explain why?
So the reason that today in June 2021, WHO is saying that vaccinating children is not a priority is because children, though they can get infected with COVID-19 and they can transmit the infection to others, they are at much lower risk of getting severe disease compared to older adults. And that is why when we started prioritizing people who should get the vaccination when there are limited supplies of vaccines available in the country, we recommend that we start with healthcare workers and frontline workers who are at very high risk of exposure to the infection. Also elderly, the people who have underlying illnesses that make them at high risk to develop severe disease, and start with those groups, protect them first, because we want to reduce the death rates that we are seeing today globally, and then gradually come down age-wise in the population till we get to children. And again, while there may be some children who are at higher risk of getting the severe disease because of some underlying illnesses or vulnerabilities or comorbidities, those children potentially could be prioritized for vaccines when they become available. But children as a group form a much lower priority group.
Soumya, in future then, would WHO be recommending or looking at recommending vaccination for children? And when do we expect that?
So most vaccine companies and developers are currently doing studies in children, starting with the 12 to 18-year-olds and then progressively going down to younger and younger age groups. So as that scientific data comes out of the studies, the SAGE, which is the Strategic Advisory Group of Experts on Immunization, that actually develops vaccination policy for WHO, which is then adopted by many countries. The SAGE will look at this data as it comes and make recommendations on how the vaccine should be used in children, at what dosage, what interval, etc., whether there are any safety precautions or contraindications. All of that will be provided in detail. But again, to go back to the point of children, except for very few children who are at high risk, not considered to be a high priority right now because we have limited doses of vaccines. We need to use them to protect the most vulnerable. And also we have to remember the fact that it's not necessary that children must get the vaccine before they can go back to school. We've seen in many countries that schools have been kept open very successfully, and as long as the adults who are working in the school environment are vaccinated and adults in the community are getting the vaccine so that infection rates start dropping, then by following the other public health measures that have been advised for school safety, schools should be able to reopen safely.
Now here are other stories we're keeping our eyes on. Forensic expert Dr. Raquel Fortun says a full autopsy is required to determine whether the Absalon cousins were actually shot, as claimed by the military. Fortun explains that a Masbate City Health officer only conducted an external examination, making it weird to call some of the injuries sustained as gunshot wounds. At least 6 individuals were injured after a cargo ship caught fire near Delpan Bridge in Tondo, Manila. The Coast Guard reports that among those hurt were 4 crew members of the MV Titan 8 and 2 crew members of the nearby MV Princess Christine. Investigators have yet to trace the cause of the fire. And starting today, the BGC-Ortigas Bridge will be partially open to motorists, as announced by the Public Works Department. The bridge will connect from Fairlane Street in Pasig to Kalayaan Avenue in Makati and soon along 8th Avenue in BGC. The project is anticipated to decongest traffic on EDSA and C5 and improve accessibility within the central business districts of Metro Manila. In world news, the leaders of Group 7 or G7 have finally met in person after nearly 2 years in the United Kingdom. The club of leading economies, which consists of Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the UK, and the US, is expected to pledge to donate 1 billion COVID-19 vaccine doses to the world's poorest countries. The leaders said a joint approach is the best chance to recover from the global health crisis. Now, aside from COVID-19, G7 leaders will also tackle issues on China, Russia, and climate change. The summit will run until tomorrow. And for more updates, visit News 5, the Philippine Star, and Business World Online. Visit our website, onenews.ph, for more in-depth analysis. You can also catch One News on Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. I'm Riza Diaz. We are One News.